Good morning. I'm Walter, for those of you who don't know. I'm a senior at City High School, graduating this year. While sitting in a Catholic church one Sunday morning, I nearly jumped out of my seat when I felt someone else's breath on the back of my neck. I turned my head slightly and noticed that everyone in the entire church had kneeled and was praying silently behind me, in front of me, and everywhere. I was in the church with my youth group. We had visited quite a few different churches while learning about the other religions. This one, however, I will never forget. And since then, I sit up a little farther on all the seats when I sit in a seat in a different church. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because when I look back on my life so far, the things I remember are experiences that affect my life every day, experiences that help me understand life and faith and how they intertwine for me. Our previous minister, Brent Smith, once told me before I gave the Gettysburg Address, he said, "You cannot speak too slow." Advice that I've always remembered. Growing up, I never really wanted to go to church, but when I got here, I would always have fun in youth group. A lot of time spent in youth group, we learned about other religions. I think this is really important. Going here, I was able to learn about all religions growing up. I was able to choose what religion I thought made the most sense to me. And after learning about them all, I still like the idea of Unitarianism the most. Mainly because of the tolerance we show to everyone. Now, I'd be lying if I said I completely understood Unitarianism, but because I don't. But after the 9th grade program, I had a pretty good idea of what it was all about. I did the 9th grade program in 8th grade due to a lack of fellow 8th graders, and I really enjoyed it. We took 2 very memorable trips, one to Chicago and one to Boston. Chicago was really cool because we saw a really cool church by Frank Lloyd Wright, and I had an extremely good steak in a restaurant. Chicago, however, was all in preparation for the big trip to Boston. I found Boston very interesting. One of the things that I remember specifically was being in a really old building and learning about all the founding fathers that worshipped and used Unitarian views. I also remember in our bed and breakfast eating dinner with some people, and they kept talking about religious things, and I wanted to know what religion they were. So I signaled to Taylor, youth group E. I said, "What are they?" Because I didn't want to say it out loud. And she said Unitarian, and which I thought was really cool, because then I found out that we were in a Unitarian bed and breakfast. Later in high school, after I'd stopped going to church regularly, when people would ask me what religion I was, I would say Unitarian, which almost always prompted the response, "What's that?" Then I would quickly run through a few points, emphasizing the flexibility of the faith. This would commonly get a response of, "Oh, so it's just a bunch of people meeting up on Sunday to socialize and worship whatever they want." Now, at this point, I would usually stop talking to them. But if I had to answer that question, I would say yes and no. Yes, because I could never get my parents to leave after the service because they were always socializing. And no, because when I come in here and listen to the services and worship, I feel in touch with what I would consider a higher power. Not necessarily God, but something, and I think that is unique. Even though I do not consider myself grown up, really, at all, the process of growing up has gone fast. Throughout my childhood, I cursed the fact that my parents decided to have 2 kids, because me and my brother, Max, were good at getting into fights that I always won, of course. But now, I'm okay with it. Having Max around assured me someone to hang out with on family vacations and trip to the grandparents. He also has offered me good advice throughout my life and has set a good example for me. One of the main reasons I'm speaking to you now is because he did it 2 years ago. If I were to describe my parents in a phrase, I would pick the phrase, "always willing to try new things." Over the years, I've seen my mom and dad experiment and try new things, a quality that I think has really added to my childhood and made it more memorable. After graduation, I plan to attend Grand Valley State University. If you asked me what I wanted to go into, I couldn't tell you. I've thought about so many career choices over the years. They all have pluses and minuses. I wanted to become an architect for a long time, but now I realize that involves a lot of math. And however, recently, I've been interested in becoming a firefighter. It appeals to me because it is simple. It allows me to help people, and of course, it involves no math. It seems to me, however, that people put way too much emphasis on college, instead of just finding a career that you enjoy doing and pursuing it. One day in school, the Marines had an informational table set up during lunch. Some friends and I were talking, and someone raised the issue of height in the Marines. I wondered if I was tall enough. So of course I had to go prove them wrong. I went up to the table and asked the Marine if there was a height requirement. He said there was, but not to worry, I fit it. I tried to walk away, but once you go up to that table, it's not easy. He did tell me something interesting, though. He told me that he had signed up for 20 years of service, and once he was done with that 20 years, he would retire and fish and hunt every day. This astounded me. It astounded me because it was so simple. He was doing something that made him happy, and he was going to retire at 38. Now, I do not plan on going to the Marines, but I do plan on going to college with an open mind, ready to pursue the career that appeals most to me. I must say, the idea of writing about my perspective on life was quite frightening. I did not really know what to write about, but I will conclude now with how I think religion and my life will mix in the future. I think religion for everyone is a personal experience, one that other people cannot and should not understand. So as I go on with my life, I plan to worship in my own way, using my own methods. But when someone asks me what religion I am, I will always respond with Unitarianism. Not because Unitarian describes my beliefs, but because my beliefs describe Unitarianism.